So actually, before setting it up, I wanted to have you take a look at this. It's actually pretty compact. This is just the stuff sack and the tent itself. 627 grams or 22.12 ounces as it sits right here. So you can get a Z-Pex tent that's a two-person tent for less weight, but definitely bigger in size than what this is. So you can see, I mean, that's my hand size right there. So definitely packs down relatively small. Okay, but like most nylon tents, they do hold a lot of water weight, and so that is perhaps one of its big disadvantages, and I think I've gone over all that before. But for now, let's go ahead and get this thing set up. Okay, one of the things that I forgot to properly set this up, it requires 12 stakes. And that's if you don't use any of the guys for the wind, otherwise you need more. So this is a very intensive stake tent. Okay, when this tent is properly set up, you'll see that the top ridgeline is wider than the foot box. And this is the foot box because it is narrower. Okay, and there is only one vestibule in this tent, and this is how you get in here. Okay, you'll see that on this side, this is wider, so this is the head end, and this side over here has a little vent up here, if you can see it, in the top there to help, but there is no exit on this side. Now, the trekking poles are angled out to get this tent set up properly. Okay. Now, one of the things I'm worried about tomorrow, this tent, the slope is from left to right now. That's why I have it set up this way, which puts the door into the wind with a possible 20-mile-an-hour wind tomorrow with snow and rain. With it pitched like it is right now, I think I'm going to have a problem, okay, with snow blowing up under that. So there's a possibility, I'm going to leave it like it is now, but there's a possibility that tomorrow night I may need to pitch it down. And how you do that is just lower the trekking poles just a little bit, and then pull the sides down. Now, you don't have to stake out the bathtub. That'll save you 4 stakes, but it seems to work a little better if it's staked out. It gives a little bit better, bathtub without it moving around a whole lot. So, which is one of the weaknesses, I think, of the duplex, is that bathtub likes to slide around in the wind. All right, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. See how it does. Well, good morning. We've had clouds come in now, the humidity's up. Matter of fact, the grass is quite wet with the dew, but there's a few droplets on the tent here this morning. Not sure if it's from dew or maybe just a little sprinkle that tried to come through. I use a ground cloth with nylon because of punctures. I don't want to get a puncture in my air mattress. So anyway, the rain's supposed to come in about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll see how it does. You can see that it's a little less taut on its pitch than it was yesterday, and that's because of the higher humidity here, and nylon will sag. When it starts to get a little bit wet, I'm going to go ahead and retighten it back up here. But let me, I closed the door last night on purpose because sometimes in Colorado here you get some unexpected winds. I didn't want this thing to become a parachute and fly away. So let me open it up and see if there's any condensation on the inside. Okay, so I opened it up. Most of the condensation was on the inside here over the grass. There's a little bit of moisture up on the inside. Down lower there is. So without even a human in here last night, just the humidity picking up, there is quite a bit more, or there is some condensation here even without that. So There's a vent there, there's a larger vent there, and there's a vent up here at the head. And then quite a large screen here. So, all right, I'll tighten it up. Let's see how it does when the rain and the snow start coming in, and we'll spend the night in it and see what happens. I wish I could do this up in the mountains, but with the COVID stuff going on right now, Colorado is pretty much locked down to everybody staying at home. All right, the wind is starting to pick up. I've had to retighten it twice since this morning. Could expect a little bit more wind than this. We'll see how she does. It definitely has been raining too, but the wind's enough that it keeps knocking off the rain. We'll see how it's doing on the inside here. All right, so no sign of any internal leaks yet, but it hasn't really been raining that hard. And as far as condensation goes, just a little bit moist, but not too bad on the inside. All right, see how the day progresses. It's been pretty windy today. It's been holding up pretty well. It's not the big downpour of rain like we often get in Florida that just pounds you, but it's been coming down pretty steady, and I don't know if you can see it now, but there's snowflakes coming down, intermixed with the rain. Some of it's actually starting to accumulate here. See if you can see some of it or not. Well, let's take a look inside and see how she's doing. By the way, one thing I do like about this tent is it does have a zipper and the Velcro closures to help it, unlike the duplex that is just kind of crossed over, I think, with a little bit of Velcro. Okay, one thing about this tent is it's not really that wide. It's a pretty small one-person tent. It really is. You can't really legitimately put a backpack in here and have it stay dry if you got any kind of condensation, which you will have. And as you can see, it's already bowing in pretty good here from the wind blowing, and it needs to be retightened again as a result of getting wet, which is a problem with the nylon. So DCF, or the Cuban fiber, is definitely superior. The vestibule is pretty decent. You can open it up for a little bit of airflow, but then that's all the airflow you're getting. Okay, I'm gonna lay down here a little bit. You can see tonight with the wind blowing, my feet are touching, and you know you're gonna have condensation. Okay, you know you're gonna have it because it's cold out there. And my breath, I can already feel some on the inside already, just like condensation. So it's my sleeping bag will be wet tonight. So there's no sense in actually going through the drill here with it, because with that wind blowing down like that, I am overcoming a cold with this coronavirus going around. That's probably not a good thing. They made myself more sick. So. All right. By the way, this has got a nice string up there that you use for a clothesline, along with a hook that you can hook your headlamp on. Once again, there's the vent. So it is stretched out pretty well. I'm going to get out and I'm going to tighten it up and see if it makes much of a difference. I tightened it up. It's helped a little bit, but with that wind blowing on that foot box like that, I don't think it's going to help us much. Let's see. And to keep the tent taut, it definitely helps to have that door closed. And yeah, I think with the wind blowing, I'm definitely going to get my sleeping bag wet tonight. Now what I can do to mitigate that is to put a raincoat over top of the sleeping bag, which is what most people have to do when they're even in a duplex. But yeah, a little disappointed. But there's no penetration of any water or any rain so far. We'll see what it's like in the morning. Okay, in all fairness, I just remembered that this comes with 4 of these wind tie outs, so I'm going to go ahead and tie them, and let's see what happens. Okay, I just tied those out, as you can see. Just use an overhand loop. It does not really lift it up that much. maybe about halfway up that line, if you put a little Y stick, that might help lift it up a little bit, but I'm not sure. It's a balance between pitching it close to the ground to keep the wind out with the snow and the rain versus the foot box. So I'm not sure. Let's take a look on the inside. Well, the wind's died down a little bit. I think there's a little more room now, but I believe my sleeping bag would still be touching the roof of the tent under the current conditions with it being pitched low. And that might have to be the price you pay for something that's compact and light and using it in the rain. Well, not a whole lot of snow, just some flurries, but it's all frozen out here today. Whew, I'd hate to be packing up that. I bet that's going to go from 22 ounces to about 5 pounds if I were out backpacking right now. Let me see what it looks like on the inside. Sign of any leaking, that's good. But there is a pretty good coating of condensation on the inside, and I wasn't even in here last night, so I'm glad I didn't sleep in it. I probably would have been wet. But as you can see, the ties did kind of help pull out the foot box a little bit, so that was probably a wise thing to use in the wind. And now with the weight of the ice. Hey, good morning everybody. It's about 5 weeks later. It took about that long to finally overcome the cold that I had. I kind of wonder if I had gotten a mild form of the coronavirus that didn't require hospitalization, because I was pretty sick there for quite a while, and it took a while to overcome. So I'm in the one from Gossamer Gear, and it was a pretty heavy dew night last night. It got down about 36, 37 degrees, I think. So the Revelation that I'm in did well. It's all wet. Let's talk about the dew and condensation. You can see there's quite a bit of condensation last night on everything. We have 2 other tents set up for my grandkids. A lot of moisture last night. The tent is sagging pretty well here, even though I tightened everything up. At 1 o'clock I had to take my ShamWow and wipe everything down, because it was literally, as you can see, it's dripping. It was doing that to me in the middle of the night and hit me in the face. And at 4 in the morning I did it again. It was really wet, and for the most part the bag is wet. The Revelation, so the down tack worked out pretty well. Still stayed puffy, but everything's just wet from condensation dripping. One of the advantages of this tent over like the Z-Packs duplex is that how they've got it designed here on the corners, and you can stake down the corners, is that on a slope the bathtub's not gonna slip out underneath the overhang and get rain in the tent. The downside is, with a lot of condensation, and as you can see here, there's some frozen, there's a little frozen condensation right there. Yeah, it's frozen. So perhaps it did get a little bit colder than I thought. If it does run, it will run down into the bathtub, down in the corners if you let it. So that's one of the reasons why I took the ShamWow. This tent is nice in the sense that it's already got a little clothesline up here with a little mitten hook. I've got this little lantern that my friend Jess gave me. It runs for about 2 hours. It charges off of a USB. It's sitting in a little piece of really light Dyneema, Cuban fiber there, so it's super light. It makes a nice little light to hang up in the middle of the night. It'd be great for hammocking. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of condensation. The bag's wet. If I were long distance hiking, I would be frustrated, I think, to have to pack this thing up wet, and the extra weight, and then trying to have to find some way of getting this bag dry. It's you probably can't tell when it's touching it down there. It's sagging enough. That's one thing that I'm frustrated with is because of how it's designed. It kind of goes right straight to the ground, and I'll show you once again when I get out, but it goes right straight to the ground, and it just doesn't have the height that it needs, or it's just not long enough. I'm only not quite 5'10", 5'9.5", and my head's wet and my feet are wet. So if you're a tall, long person, this tent is not going to work well for you. All right, so there's the Big Agnes, the T&H Outdoors, and then the one. I had all these tents pretty much really tight last night when we went to bed, so each of them had their own issues with the condensation stretching them out. This one's pretty loose now, which resulted in a lot of sagging and a lot of, you can see as I was getting up there, see all that? That's my head and everything rubbing against the inside surface as I'm trying to get up and get out this morning. And so yeah, we definitely got some little freezing last night, a bit of frost. All right, well, that's kind of how she fared. I'm not sure it's a very good cold weather tent, and with any single wall, you're going to have the condensation to deal with. And so far, of all the nights I've spent in this tent, I've only had two nights down when I did the Narrows hike in Utah where I didn't have condensation. But every other time I've tried it, I've had some pretty good condensation in it. So definitely one of the downsides of a single wall tent. Okay, it's been out in the sun for a couple hours, and you can see how the tent is tightened up quite nicely. I haven't touched it since I showed you the sagged version of it this morning. I think for the kids want to camp out again tonight, so I'll do one more night. This time I think I'm going to pull up these bathtub stakes down here, and that one looks like it came off already anyway. So I think I'll pull up the bathtub stakes and lift up the tent a little bit, give it some more ground clearance on the ends, and see if that doesn't help with the distance it has between my face and the material and the foot box, and see if I can't have a little bit better night's sleep, perhaps, with all the dew that we're probably going to have again tonight. Well, good morning, everybody. I did one more night in the one, and left the poles at 125 centimeters. I went back and checked the internet specs on what they were supposed to be set at, and that was the correct height. So try to give it one more shot here. At 1 o'clock, I woke up and cleaned off the dew using a ShamWow here, and again at 4 I did it, and as you can see, there's still quite a bit of condensation in here. But at 4, what woke me up was the fact that my sleeping bag here was totally soaked. It's really soaked. I mean, almost as if I just dunked it in a bucket of water. Fortunately, it's got that down tech in it, so it still will try and loft back up again, even though it's wet. So I think definitively, if you're 5'10" and you're on a Neo Air here, you're probably like for sure you're up into the especially with a little bit of drooping from either condensation or rain. You're going to be touching at the feet end, and if you turn around here, you'll see how that's shoved up against the top there. I don't know if you can. Sun's probably interfering a little bit there, but anyway. Well, yeah. So if you're thinking about buying the one, you need to understand that if you're tall, you're going to be miserable with always being wet with the condensation. If you are shorter, you'll probably get away with it. If you're using a pad instead of a mattress, you're down a little bit lower, so you're not lofting up quite so much, you're probably okay. But I think of all the nights I've spent in this tent over the last 3 years, I'm going to say it's probably 1, 2, maybe 8 or 9 times. Only twice have I actually not had condensation, so it's definitely a condensation magnet with this seal nylon. Well, in summary, another really wet night in the tent, a lot of condensation, and I would say that if you're looking at buying this tent, you need to understand that if you are 5'10" or less, you might be okay, especially if you don't use an inflatable pad, so you're not being pushed up into the tent material. If you are taller than 5'10", I would say you're going to be very disappointed in the purchase. Overall, I have experienced wet nights now in this tent every night except 2 that I slept in, and that's probably about 8 or 9 nights over the last 3 years that I've owned it. I probably would not buy it again. I mean, I think a great design if they could just find a way down here to bring this head and foot box a little more vertical before it comes down and ties off, similar to like how tarp tents will take and put some some carbon stays in the corners to kind of lift them up. I mean, it looks nice. It looks as it comes all the way to the ground. It's just it's not long enough for most people. If it was longer, then you could deal with the condensation while not getting wet, but it's not long enough on the floor to handle most guys, and even some gals will probably not be happy with this tent. All right, everybody, have a good day. Bye.